Any tips for breaking down or understanding complicated passages on the reading part? So again, one that depends a lot on the passage because every passage is different. So one thing that might help with one passage may not be very helpful for another. We'll repeat some of what I've said earlier about this, not today, but just in general, because it's really the same kind of advice applies to these. So the first thing would be focus on questions. Let the questions do the work for you in the sense of telling you what's important and what's not. The danger of kind of worrying about understanding complicated passages, the possible danger is spending time trying to understand something that they don't ask a question about. If, for example, the first paragraph is 15 lines long and there are somehow no questions about that first paragraph, potentially trying to fully understand that first paragraph may not be a good use of your time. Certainly, if there's a general question that covers the passage as a whole, maybe somewhat understanding that first paragraph might matter. But again, the focus should be on what questions do they ask and answer those questions, rather than going into the passage assuming we need to understand every single word and then go to the questions. Let the questions be the guide for you. Part of it is, and this goes with focusing on the questions, is read the essay when you're going through the questions, read the passages paragraph by paragraph. You should be doing that naturally as you're working through the questions. This is the strategy that I teach. As you're working through the questions, you're reading through the passage simultaneously. And how it usually works out is you're basically reading a paragraph at a time. And what that helps you do is chunk it down naturally. Because the big danger, and again, everyone's got their different approaches, different strategies, and if something's working for you, I don't want to tell you to change it. But if you don't have a strategy that works for you for reading, and this applies to some extent for the ACT reading as well, I don't recommend opening up the test booklet, starting from line 1, reading all the way to line 80, and then going to questions. For all different kinds of reasons, which I won't go into now, that's not the best way to approach things. Instead, you go to the questions, you find the first specific question you can, you read until you can answer that one, then move on to the next specific, read until you can answer that one. So you're reading in chunks, and that can help you break down the passage rather than kind of reading this whole monstrous beast and trying to understand the whole thing at once. That's really hard to do. What is your passage strategy? Plugging alert. That I go into more detail about this in my reading course, but let me give you the general outlines of what this looks like. Step 1, read the blurb. So read the little thing at the top, the italicized portion that sometimes contains important information. 2, find the first specific question. 3, read passage until you answer that question. 4, find second specific question. I'm sorry, my handwriting's terrible. Partly it's terrible, but I'm also trying to write fast. Find the second specific question. 5, continue reading. Probably should have typed this. From where you left off, and answer the cue. Repeat this until you finish all your specific questions, then go back and do general questions. Main idea at the end. By the time you get to step 7, you should have probably read the entire passage in the process of answering the specifics. By the time you've done that, you've read the whole passage, you should be ready to answer, or more prepared to answer, a general or a main idea question. That is the basic approach. So notice nowhere in this strategy, in my strategy at least, do I have anything about, for the SAT at least, reading through the whole passage first. I won't go into details why. In my reading course, I explain why I think this is the best way to do it, and others will disagree. You'll probably hear elsewhere people tell you to read the passage. Whatever. I mean, try it. Like, in the end, everyone has different likes and dislikes. Things work better for some people, better for others. So try out different methods, see what you're more comfortable with, develop some hybrid of your own. Whatever works for you, you're going to discover through practice. Now, I will defend this strategy vigorously because I think there's really good reasons why it works. But, experiment. Take this, take another method, take your own method, play around, see what you find most comfortable. You also might adjust based on the passage. You might consider reading the fiction passage through first. Right, that might be an exception. Do read the fiction passage and then go to the questions. So it depends. There are all these variables, but this is a good foundation. To learn more about Reason Prep's SAT, SAT subject test, and ACT video courses, go to reasonprep.com/enroll, and you can find the link in the description below the video.